Is Ed Genesis. I am the host of Truth Talks. This is another Truth Talks with TRHT, Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation, Kalamazoo. Today we are talking about relationships, and I'm excited to dive into that because we're about to have some real conversations. Y'all know with Truth Talks, we got to keep it real. It's no fun unless we telling the truth and having real conversations. So with that, we wanted to dive in and talk about relationships. But of course, before we get into that, we got to do the touch tones, make sure we ground ourselves. And so I'm going to read through those, and I should have had them up, so y'all forgive me. Okay, so the touch tones are an agreement, so to speak, of ways that we come together, be grounded. It's a way that we're respectful of each other's conversation, and also just a way that we ground ourselves within TRHT, Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation, Kalamazoo. So the first touchstone is be 100% present, extending and presuming welcome. Speak your truth. Say what is in your heart, trusting that your voice will be heard and your contribution respected. Always by invitation. So even though you are invited to be panelists, it's never you have to share. Share what you feel comfortable with, what you don't feel comfortable with, leave for someone else to speak on, or just leave it. Maintain confidentiality. This is a public forum, but again, we ask that the conversations that we have during this forum, we don't repeat to family members, colleagues, friends, things like that. We respect it as a safe space. No language of the soul is privilege over any other language of the soul. All of us express truths, identities, and beliefs based on our inner and outer experiences that are integral to our humanity. We value feeling as much as knowing. No fixing, no saving, no advising. We don't do this as like a therapeutic session, even though it can be therapeutic. We don't act as if we're professionals and giving advice to one another. We're just having real conversations. Identify assumptions and suspend judgment. Our assumptions and judgments are usually invisible to us, yet they undergird our worldview. By identifying our assumptions, we can then set them aside and open our viewpoints to greater possibilities. By creating space between judgments and reactions, we can listen to others and to ourselves more fully, and thus our perspectives, decisions, and our actions are more informed. Respect and learn from silence. When things get difficult, turn to wonder. If you find yourself disagreeing with another, becoming judgmental, or experiencing challenging emotions, try turning to wonder. I wonder what she is thinking. I wonder what brought him to this place. I wonder what they are feeling right now. And I wonder what my reaction teaches me about me. And last but not least, trust the healing process. Trust your own heart and the hearts of others. So with that, I would like to welcome the panelists. And again, this is Truth Talks. I am the host, Ed Genesis. I am amongst other things, I'm a community organizer, activist, racial healing practitioner, co-director of Speaking Forward, and I'm also in a relationship. So with that, I would like to introduce, first and foremost, the vice mayor of the city and my wife, best friend, partner, road dog, and a whole bunch more, Mrs. Patrice Griffin. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Well, you did an absolutely wonderful job. But hello there, everyone. I'm Patrice Griffin, and I'm happy to be here in this conversation with you all.
Thank you very much. Going over to an awesome couple that I had the opportunity of hanging out with and getting to build with when the world was, recovering from a lot. We still are in recovery, honestly, from a lot of the things, from the pandemic, gun violence, Trump, and a lot more. But I had the opportunity of hanging out with Carla and Alvaro, and I'm learning to roll my R's a little better.
Okay, it sounds good though.
Okay, cool. So welcome. If you can introduce yourselves briefly, please.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Well, my name is Carla Fernandez Soto, and I am Alvaro's wife, partner, I think best friend too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Everything you say, the same you say
yes,
for us.
except I'm not Vice Mayor, but everything else is the same pretty much. And very happy to be here. Good to know.
Yes, my name, as you can read there, is Alvaro. I'm from Honduras, and I feel really happy that you guys invite us to this True Talks. So we feel really excited about.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being here. And last but not least, another amazing couple that I've had the opportunity of building with and working with in the community. This family now, Mr. Don Hempfield and Mrs. Ebony Hempfield. You can introduce yourselves, please.
Hello again, I'm Ebony Hempel. I am the lead of an amazing initiative called Parents United here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I am a wife, a mother, a friend, and a community activist.
Hello, everybody. I'm Don Hempill. That's my amazing wife, Ebony Hempill, my partner, my best friend. I'm head of Blocks United. Ed and I, it's a blocks club here in Kalamazoo. So something that we got illustrating and orchestrating right now that's up and coming. And I'm just happy to be on the panel with all you great folks and great couples. So I look forward to this conversation.
All right, cool. So we're about to dive straight in, y'all. So one of the questions that we came up with dealing with talking about this conversation is, how do people model their relationships and why? And that was an interesting question because growing up, whether you see it played out in movies, on love song videos, or maybe you saw it in your household. So when I was growing up, my grandmother and my grandfather, the only grandfather I ever knew, my biological grandfather had passed. So the only grandfather I ever knew was Roosevelt Robinson, and him and my grandmother were married, and they had a relationship where that's what I saw what love looked like. When he entered a room, she would smile when and vice versa. Like they just kind of lit up, and when they were around one another, I liked their conversations. So that's one of the things that I would see growing up. I can't say that I necessarily patterned my relationship after that, but it is some of the things that I saw growing up. What about you all? I want to straight go into Carla and Alvaro, if I can, the same question. Where do we see relationships from, or where did you all see relationships from?
Should I emphasize? Okay, I'll start. Yeah, so interesting to think about. So what I saw relationships first and foremost with my parents. And, my mom's no longer living, may she rest in peace. But all my life, they were extremely affectionate. I think that that's something also cultural maybe, but I'm from Puerto Rico, and, we show a lot of love, affection. There's a lot of touching. There's a lot of, visible, love. And my parents, I feel really blessed in that sense that there was just love was never missing from my household, and that's who really modeled what love looked like for me. And with my grandparents, it was kind of similar, but they were a bit more reserved. But still, having couples staying together. You know, in my family, there's really not a lot, like very few people in my family have gotten divorced or separated. So it for me, that was always very visible that it's a part, there's two people in a partnership. You know, the roles were not always, you know, I didn't always see, you know, a lot of equity in those roles necessarily, especially my grandparents. But when it comes to my parents, I did see a partnership where it was mutual respect and we're in this together, and a lot of visible love. I don't know about.
Well, I believe my story is kind of different because I was born in a family where my mom is a single mother, and her company was my grandmother. So for me, I never thought about this question before, to be honest. And for me, I believe that there are different kinds of love, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the love that I lived, it was a more supportive love, where my grandmother supported my mom to keep going with her life, with her studies, with her everything, and with me. So it's a good question. I never thought about it. So I believe love is for me, or my role model for love is like supportive love, love for support, and that's my answer, I guess.
I really appreciate that you went there with it, because I should have prefaced that question a little better with saying relationships, period, and not just husband and wife, or how do we model relationships. And that was a great answer, because what you see, I was raised by a single mother. My father was killed when I was 2, and my mother did remarry, but it was years later. And so I saw her do a lot. And so when I thought of relationship, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, my grandmother and my grandfather, because I saw them in a relationship. But I never thought about how you describe the family relationship, what you saw to model what a relationship should look like. I think that's actually dope, because it's the most well, how do I say this? You're not expecting anything when you're just being yourself and you're coming together like that. So I actually like that. We will revisit that in a minute. Because I have a spinoff question I want to follow through with everybody on that one. So thank you for lifting that up.
Okay.
So going straight over to let's ask that same question, Vice Mayor Patrice. How do people model their relationships, and why? Or how do you model relationships, and why?
I guess it's interesting. So I would say in general, based off of what I've seen, in my immediate household, I was raised by a single mother. She did remarry. But the most the long-term relationships that I saw were my grandparents, on both sides. And it's just like my great aunt, she just celebrated her 75th wedding anniversary. And so I have,
Okay.
right? I have those people to look to, but also being real enough to know that some of the things that have been patterned have not always been through the most positive things that I have seen, and not realizing that until, and being into a relationship, in a relationship with your partner, your life partner, and how all those things show up. So it's just been very interesting. And that was a very good question to have to kind of self-reflect on where we pull our stuff from.
Yeah, because you know what? It's one of those things that said, well, who told you about this? It's like standing in line at a store and say, well, I came to get my partner in life, and they got a partner, and so got a partner. And it's like, okay, but who told you that you deserve a partner or to be in a relationship? And it's like, well, wow. When you check the entitlement, it makes you wonder, what are you bringing to a relationship? And that can be just circling back to how Alvaro lifted up. What if it's just you and you're raising a child? Does that mean you show up unhealthy in that relationship? So it's just so many different questions. And then that opens up a whole nother door of that child receiving that would model what they do later on in life. And so that's pretty deep. Thank you for sharing that, Patrice. And now going over, Don, same question. Where do people model relationships, or where did you model relationships, and why?
Well, I modeled my relationship after my parents, because I didn't really have that. My grandparents, they passed away, so I didn't have to see that grandparents relationship. But my mother and my father was together. They were married all the way up until my father passed in 2001. So I had that in home, that mother, that father in the house. So I seen that through them, and I just kind of tried to model the way how my dad would treat my mom, and so I kind of took notes a little bit, but I learned a lot from like other people because my dad was always on the go. He was a truck driver, so I had to learn a little bit from like the neighbor that would stay 2 houses down, and seeing how he handled his relationship with his wife and the people across the street. And I never grew up, never in my life seeing a man hit a woman. Like that was just something that we just didn't tolerate or didn't play. So it just stayed with me as I grew older, and I just tried to keep those things in mind, that try to do the same thing that I seen, because my dad and mom probably would still be married if he hadn't passed away to this day. So just trying to model my marriage after that a little bit.
Now, see, you brought up something very interesting too, because as a community, children watch. So it's not just the grandparents or not just the
Right.
parent. Children watch the community in ways that they should conduct, or how they. So yeah, thank you for lifting up that element as well, because we have a talk at the end of this month where we will be discussing male toxicity. And one of the things that we're discussing with that is some of the things that we as men pick up in the community and say, well, is this right? And I recall coming home many a times and my mother having to check me and say, you leave the street stuff out in the street, but having to be reminded that that's not how I raised you, and that's not what we do in the house. So yeah, thank you for lifting that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that we will revisit that part too, because that's an important element where women later on sometimes have to become the new mothers of saying, we don't bring that into the household because of the different things that you've picked up from community. Okay, so last but not least, she just got kicked off again.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, she got kicked
she'll be
off
back
like
on.
twice. Okay, so all right, here we go. Yeah.
No, whatever you come on. Just wait.
Okay, Ebony, the same question.
I
Where do
apologize. I got kicked off.
yeah, no problem, no problem. So what about yourself? Where do you model relationships from, and why?
I think that I model relationships on, what I've seen. I know at first you were saying about your marriage and how you model it. With my marriage in particular, my parents were married at a point in time. I had grandparents on both sides that were married, and I kind of modeled even like things I wanted in my marriage and things I did not want in my marriage, based on what I saw with my organic group of people who were married, my family, and, other people you could see in the community. I had one couple, the Stigglers. They were amazing. Like, you just see him all the time, opening the door, closing the door. Like, I don't think I ever seen Mrs. Stigler touch a door handle, a car handle, the handle to her fence or anything. So really and truly, by what I saw, I was able to base what I did and did not want in my marriage, and also other relationships as well.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that, and thank you for that visual of. I have a wife that we go back and forth about her getting the door, her not getting the door. Sometimes she'll walk up to the door and treat it like it's automatic, just stand there and just. And then other times I gotta try to hurry up and beat her to the door. Like, oh no, I got it. So thank you for that. Okay, so going right into the second part of this. So we talked about different ways that we learn about relationships and things like that. But now the part two is, how has culture and media affected expectations and views for relationships? And so again, if you have a child that you're watching things in the community, you're watching people in the community, but you're also hearing the songs, you're also seeing the television shows, the things that may or may not look cool. This was particularly important for me because the hip hop culture, and I don't want to vilify the hip hop culture, but I'm gonna keep it real as far as seeing different things, the singers, the rappers, the different things, even the movie stars. There's a certain imaging that goes out to specifically mostly the young men, and how you should conduct yourself a lot of times in relationships. And at least that's for me personally, some of the things that I saw of becoming an alpha male, or the guy, the one, the coolest one in whatever circle. This person gets not just, this guy doesn't just get the girl, he gets all the girls. And some of the things that I saw depicted out and played out in my life. And so it was not like just the football player dates the cheerleader. It was the dope boy gets every pretty woman that's in the area because he can afford to. There's a lack of men, even though I didn't know that part. You just see, I didn't know what mass incarceration was. I didn't know none of the different barriers. I just saw that every now and then there was somebody who would, I don't know, exert themselves in a different type of light, and they seem to be the one. And when you see that played out like that, you want to be the one, or at least that's how it played out in my life. Just speaking, using I statements and speaking from different cultural and media influences that I saw. Particularly, again, not to vilify, but just keeping it 1,001 million, as I like to say, a movie called The Mac and a movie called Superfly, again, help perpetuate the thoughts that this is part of the territory. If the cooler you are, the more, in a relationship with multiple people, you probably should be. Like this is some of the thoughts that went out, not everywhere, but certain parts. That's just my truth. So I want to pass it to hear from other. I'm gonna go straight to my wife on that one, because that's like some of the conversations we've had. So just media influences, or culturally, how do you think that shapes the different things in society or people within relationships?
Well, the dominant narrative would have the primary shape on relationships. And so for me, I'm gonna take a different spin and go with families and relationships. So what I see in the media, what I see primarily is that if you have a family or you have a blended family, right, that doesn't work. That there is no relationship, that there is no getting along. Particularly in the Black culture, you don't see that lifted up very often. You don't see that lifted up at all. And so just to go along with what you said of the things that the hip hop cultures have lifted up, I feel like there's a complete underrepresentation for, families and such. And so for our family, we have 3 children, but his oldest son is not mine. We get along beautifully and always have with his mother. The media would suggest that that's not possible. That doesn't happen. And so I think those sort of things shape not only what we see, but the expectations that we might have, the hopes that we might have, that you can have a relationship that doesn't have drama, or if there is at one time, that you can, grow from that. So I think that's a very good question about how culture has shaped and what it does for relationships.
I'm so glad that you went the angle that you did, because it makes me, I use hip hop because not just being a hip hop artist, but also a hip hop connoisseur. Like I listen to it, I love it. But what you just lifted up, Patrice, reminds me of growing up. All I saw was good times, and J.J. Evans was frustrated all the time, and they lived in the projects. Everything that I saw after that was somebody else raising little Black kids. Webster, Different Strokes. It was always somebody else raising little Black kids, and there was no other representation of a Black father until we did see the Jeffersons. So I don't want to take away from that, but that was more about Lionel was grown, so you didn't see them really parenting. We didn't see parenting again until the Cosby Show. And if you live where I live, by the time the Cosby Show came out, it was interesting. It was great to watch, but it was like, this is not, I don't know anybody like this. So it was good to watch, but it felt not real. So I appreciate you lifting up that. Where does that come from? Like, where does that go in your subconscious even? You're looking at this and thinking about a girlfriend, but the thought of a family has since left your whole mind, or you haven't saw it a lot. So I appreciate you lifting that aspect up. Carla and Alvaro, media and culturally, how do you think that plays out into relationships?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's coming up for me is just really the overwhelming kind of heteronormative narratives that exist in media, and that very gendered, very role specific kind of representations that we take in that really don't leave a lot of room for like expansion and like, two people in a relationship growing together, and portrayals of like, for example, infidelity as like nope, end all be all, we're done, like nope, or monogamy, same thing. So like it's just like all these media portrayals of like relationships as like these things that like bind us, and that really just doesn't, like I said, leave room for just 2 people to grow, without trying to fit into any sort of that, those really dominant narratives. And also, and me thinking about myself as a Puerto Rican woman, a lot of times media portrayals that I saw were like, the kind of femme partner in a relationship, the woman, is kind of like just this beautiful accessory. I didn't really oftentimes see, or like this beautiful accessory and like the one that holds it down. but I didn't really see a lot of representations of, you know, women being like intellectual leaders and like, you know, yeah, just really disrupting anything. And so, yeah, a lot of what I saw, like, I think it was Ebony, you said it, you know, a lot of it's like what I don't want, what I know that I don't want, you know, and to show up in my relationship.
Well, I believe one of the things that really has a lot of influence is the culture. Like for me, for example, you have to be a papi chulo, you know. You have to be a papi for to have every girl on the block or every girl in the school, and you have to act tough, and you have to do like gangs things and everything, you know, only to have the admiration of your friends and of the rest of the people or the hood. And the other thing about media are we Latinos have a lot of soap operas. That's how you call it, right?
Soap operas,
Soap operas.
novelas.
You know, um, the the rich guy with the poor girl they met, they fell in love, this and that. So I believe these two things that are like big influences in us. True.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's deep. That whether Gary, Indiana or Honduras is like the same. That like the same type of things that's being pushed out there that we think is what makes us. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, Ebony, the same question. How does media and culture play out in the people seeing relationships?
Well, one thing I think about the media playing out in relationships is they control the narrative, right? On what we're seeing and what we're taking in and what we actually think and believe a relationship is. One of the things you don't really see, I'm a piggyback just a little bit, is the push and pull and people really trying to fight to kind of follow through with your marriage vows when you say better or worse. I don't know if people like listen to what you're saying when you in front of your judge and your two people or a big wedding if that's the way you went. But you don't see the push and pull to like how do we really get through the worst part, you know, because it's not always better. And so I don't see a lot of that. So people, I think that may be a factor in why so many relationships are just marriages are just over because they're not seeing the push and pull to fight for it. So they're just like, okay, we ain't get along. This ain't working. It's over. Not let's fight this through and see how we can get through the worst of it and make it better.
I want to jump in before going to you real fast, Don, because I want to go back to what Carla was lifting up. Is some of that people not working it out, Ebony, or could some of that be media seems to put out, the way Carla put it, was like, these are the standards and this is what you don't do. And you don't even know what that feels like or what you would do. But this person says, well, you got to be strong. You got to be independent and don't put up with that and don't deal with this. And you can walk out on something based off like not even trying to give it a try based off what society or somebody else has suggested. Just going back to what Carla was saying, so that just linking the two of you all's conversation, it just really hit me when you said the people throwing the towel in or not really thinking about the vows, like the honeymoon phase faded and now they just ready to be like, man, I'm ready. I'm out of here. I'm going back home. I ain't got to put up with this. And that's wrong. Don, the same question then, like just going straight over to you with that same.
Man, it's kind of like what everybody said, man. It's like the media controls what we see, they put it on TV. So it's kind of like right now the thing, marriage is like it's kind of, at one point it was the thing to do, and then media, of course, bash it and make it seem like it's not the thing to do. So now everybody want to be single, and so it plays a major part in your relationship, man. Because if you glued to social media and all these other things all day, and you seeing all the negativity, and it's kind of like, do I go that way with my relationship, or do I go the way that I think it's supposed to go? Like Ebony said, with the vows, because I mean, me growing up, I seen my parents. They did argue a lot, but I also seen them sit down and talk it out and figure it out, and not worry about what the lady across the street got to say because she was out in the yard being nosy when they were arguing. So it's kind of like, well, I can't take your advice because you don't even have a man. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's like the media really, I mean, what they put on TV, man, is it kind of controls us nowadays. So we have to have a bigger mind frame, man, and just learn to fight through that, because we did take a vow through God. Like, I mean, those vows wasn't through like man, like that was something that that was like a vow through God, for better, for worse. So you got to just kind of like blank all the other stuff out, man, and kind of just stay that tunnel vision with you and your spouse and what works for y'all, and just make it work. Try not to focus on the media and all the other narratives and stuff.
You touched on something that it made me think about my great aunt, my Aunt Doris Gilbert, God rest her soul. She helped raise me. She played a very pivotal part in raising me, and she would always talk to me about marriage is the one license that you don't have to renew. Every other license you have to prove after a while that you still got it, whether it's your doctor, driving, anything. You have to prove that you still have the skills, or you won't have that license. And she said, if you're not intentional about renewing the license on your own, you can't just expect. And I never forget that. And I watched, and I think just personally, I've watched people rely simply on either love, or after a while, it's like familiarity. It's like, well, we've been together this long, let's just whatever, but not the rekindling, or what brought me to this place in the beginning. Let's try to figure out, where that is again. And so I really appreciate you bringing up that, Don, because it's work. It takes work. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard, but we can do it, man. I done been in the doghouse many times, man. Just trying to, I gotta, but it's like the question comes at hand, like, do you want this? Like, because like she said, some people just throw the towel in, man. That first little go around, like, I'm done with this, it's over. It's like, well, man, we can't work it out. Like, it was that serious to, some things are, but it's like, I just believe, man, that I'm with that old school marriage, man. I'm used to people saying they've been married, like Patrice said, was 60 some years, man. Like that, we don't hear about that no more, man. Like
75.
75, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we don't hear about that. We don't hear about that no more, man. We hear, well, how long was you married? I was married 2 years. And it's like, damn, like 2 years. That's not nothing to learn somebody, but to each his own, man. But yeah.
So that goes straight into, I'm gonna let you answer this one then. You could kick this one off, because what you said goes straight into, what are some of the challenges that people have had to overcome as couples that and kept it going, and are stronger on the other side.
Well, of course, trust. You know what I mean? You gotta be able to trust your partner. So trust is always that issue. Just what was it? Say it again, bro. Almost, because I don't have the questions on my screen. What, say it?
Oh no, yeah, you cool. So what are some of the challenges people have had to overcome as a couple?
Okay, the challenges, well, like I said, trust is a challenge. Learning to trust your mate, your spouse. Learning, learning that person, man, is that's an obstacle within itself, man. Like you said with Patrice, like she's standing there at the door, man. Like, you know, you're gonna get the door. Like, it's just so learning that person, learning what they like, learning their dislikes, like all those can be obstacles, man, that you have to overcome to be able to have that nice relationship, that nice flowing relationship. So it could vary, man, from, you know, just your situation, I guess. But I know for me, mine was like trust. Like, I used to hang out, you know, stay out. So my wife used to have to kind of trust me. She go out of town, I gotta trust her. It's just certain stuff, man. It's just whatever you feel like might be an issue in your relationship, I guess.
Okay, I'm a zigzag on this one. No, I'm not. No, I'm gonna keep it even because you just said something. You brought her into it, so I'm gonna say Ebony. Same question.
So, you know, like Dontre said, obviously trust and just kind to, as a person is evolving and things are changing. And, you know, like for instance, I'm going to say, I just told somebody the other day, I'm like, man, I think as I'm getting older, things are really changing. Like, you couldn't pay me to eat a blueberry. Now I eat a bowl of blueberries, like in the last year with no problem. So just learning to go with the flow as things change, you know. Back in the day, I love for Dontre to wear a curve. Don't spray no curve on you now, sir. Like, we all Dolce Gabbana light blue. Like, things are continuously changing, and you just got to be able to still love that person through the changes and just understand, like, as humans, we grow and we change, you know. I used to hang out all night and stay up 24 hours. Now, once I sit still, I'm out of there, lights out. So just learning that person and learning to love them through the changes.
I think that was dope. The way you put that with the going through the changes, but I also want to lift up. Both of y'all said trust, and then this goes back to what Carla and Ebony said earlier. Is it? And I'm asking this to everybody on the panel because one of the things that Patrice and I have to overcome, and I've watched other relationships have to overcome, is some of the things that was done before you even got into a relationship. So it's some of the baggage that you come with, trauma, like I got abandonment issues. So that plays out in several different ways that ain't cool. But what I want to talk about real fast, and this is to everybody, is are we talking about the trust, like a overall trust, like I trust that you got my back, I trust that you're not lying to me, I trust that you wouldn't lie? Or are we talking about I have seen hurt, pain, broken relationships, and so the trust that I'm asking you to give and be responsible for is like fixing that, basically, because I found myself in that realm too. Am I making sense? Like, there's a trust, and then there's another layer of trust is like, I saw Mr. Johnson up the street cheating, and I saw my cousin doing this, and so when you say you going here, it are we talking about trust, or are we talking about suspicion? Like, them like two different things. Like, when we suspicious of things, we've seen a lot or maybe even done a lot. And so it makes it a little more difficult. Like, are we bringing in things in a relationship and then saying things, or are we coming like that? And I got to ask that like now before we even go on, because trust is a big thing. But are we talking about trust, or are we talking about I'm suspicious? And anybody can jump in on that one.
I think for me, I'm going to say suspicion and trust. I'm going to say probably suspicion is from carrying over baggage, you know, whether it be being hurt or hurting someone. And then trust, I'm just going to say, like, going through different phases of relationships, period. So it's kind of both for me.
That make a lot of sense, honestly. Yeah. unless I think that pretty much answered it. Yeah, you carry in this. Okay. If anybody else wants to chime in, you can, but I think that broke it down pretty much right there. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would probably answer similarly, like there's been, in past relationships creep in, like, just because you lived them like for however many years, and say, suspicion creeps in because, I had a partner that, we were monogamous and then cheated on me. So then, I think it's normal that you would be suspicious if certain things came up, but I think trust in the sense that I trust that we both have the best interest of this partnership, in our hearts. So like in that big sense, but I think it's normal to carry, over some things. And if it's like the baggage that gets too heavy, then it's time for a, kind of come to Jesus moment. Like,
Patrice, what are some things that people have to overcome in relationships? And I know I lifted up some of the things that we've had to face is things that ain't have nothing to do with us directly. But yeah. So not answering for you, but just what do you think are some of the things?
I think some of the things are some of the relationships that we have, like with our parents. That relationship, that hurt, that harm, or that joy, that pleasure, whatever it may have been, it could have been all of those collectively, kind of folds into what you said, as I like to say, trauma colliding. And so, we met each other. I was in high school still, right? And so we're talking 20 years of having to and that growth. And so, like Ebony said, those changes, you have to be able to recognize who you are, what you brought in this space, check that in, and be able to do that with your partner as well. And there is no, like, I haven't found that book, that guidebook yet, right? To do this. So it's a lot of learning. Communication is probably one of the biggest challenges that I would say that relationships have to overcome. You heard what you thought you heard. You said it didn't land the way you thought it was supposed to, and how all of that stuff plays out. And then the resolve, right? That's that other piece. What does resolve look like in your relationship? And for some people, I think another challenge has been, and I've heard this from different people, even though this was not our particular challenge of when I think of relationships, I was not one as a child who was like, oh, marriage, marriage, marriage. I always thought it was really interesting that people had this ideal and that anybody could slip into it. That always was very strange to me. So even the idea that you have to be married and watching people go through that and the pressure being put on someone to say that you have to have this. And so now, Ed and I, we've had this talk before, and I understand now, of course, the legalities, and there's nowhere I would rather be besides married, because there's so much that comes with that. But the respect that you have to have doesn't have anything to do with marriage or not. But I think, and then ultimately people need to decide what's best for them, right? Because what's best for Ebony and Don, what's best for Carla and Alvaro may not be what's best for Ed and Patrice, right? And it's okay for things to be different. And as long as there's, what works for you. So I think there's always a challenge. But as long as you're in that with your partner, at least you can overcome it.
I think that was, thank you for what you said. And I think that was very interesting that we live in a society where Little girls can tell you at a certain age, yes, I want to be married. I want these many people at my wedding. I want this type of dress. And they have no idea what that man, there is no man yet. There's just the thought of the dress, the church, my friends. And so any man can fill that slot if he fits certain criteria into like 3 years into it. And then you find out he's a creep and some other stuff. So them preconceived thoughts, yeah, we definitely need to do away with those in society. And speaking of that, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna lift this up. So once upon a time in our society, because we are in America, which is capitalistic and racist. There's a lot of remnants of racism in a lot of different things. And so marriage in America was, the Mrs. used to be Mr. apostrophe S, as in ownership. So even traditionally now, you will hear Mr. and Mrs. Barack Obama. The woman doesn't even have a name. Mr. and Mrs. Joe Biden. Not the Bidens, not Mr. and Mrs. Biden, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Biden. Because in our society, that's how it used to be. It was Mr. and then it was Mr. apostrophe S, which is where the Mrs. came from. Something I learned in a history class along with the rule of thumb. And if you're all are not familiar with the rule of thumb, and this is something that they say just regularly, and rule of thumb speaks to a standard. So they say, well, yeah, sure, you can use a number 3 pencil if you want to, but the rule of thumb is we use a number 2 pencil for standard tests because of how they're picked up. Well, the rule of thumb is, once upon a time in our society, a man could once beat his woman or his child with a stick as long as it did not measure in width wider than his thumb. And that's the society that we're in. So when we think about marriage, then we go back to the industry of marriage. Who came up with this concept in our current, not in biblical times or not things that predate what they did in North America, but like right now, some of the things. So if there's self-help books, if there's marriage counselors and things like that, what are you pulling from? This, something spiritual, or the other side? Yeah, Carla, you want to say something to that?
Yeah, because what you're saying, is really bringing up in me, like, the rule of thumb also is that you don't marry someone from a different country, like you could, or like from a different community or whatever. Yeah. So, one challenge that we've had to overcome is that it kind of seems like the US government is like this whole other person in our relationship. And, has really brought out like ugliness in us both as we try to navigate that, and we're like in a very run of the mill, like marriage visa. So, and even with the kind of like really basic visa process, so much racism built into the system. And, I don't know if you want to say. No. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Just you touching on that makes me wish that we had somebody from the LGBTQ plus community as well to speak on relationships, because when you go into that and what the government feels like they have the right to say about somebody else's relationship and what you do with the person that you say you love and you want to, it's ridiculous. And like Patrice lifted up earlier, if you're not married, your rights, like, they go out the window. Like, you can't even go in hospital rooms and stuff. Are you married? Okay, we need you to step out here and stand right here. If you're married, family. And it's just, so you want to be able to have that right, but what you said, Carla, is so many nuances to that so many other people are like, that seems to be one of the quote unquote American dreams. I want that same thing. Why do I have to jump through hoops to get that? And I think that's why they stack it up in media the way they do. And it seems like, yeah, that's a money game and some other things. So to keep it going, how do you grow in a relationship individually and together? And I want to chime in and just say, I think you have to be cool. You have to be friends. You have to be, that's my honest opinion. You have to be, I don't know, that's my I statements. I'm using my I statements with that one. I'm saying,
Can you repeat the question, please?
yes. How do you grow in a relationship individually and together? And I'm saying being cool because it takes away those standards that that Carla and Ebony alluded to earlier with the expectations and the different things that society says. Ebony spoke about growth, and Carla mentioned different things that society puts on you as, well, this, like checkpoints. When you do away with those, I think it allows you to just be able to grow and just be yourself. I'm very moody, very, very moody. And I was raised by primarily strong, opinionated Black women. And it plays out. Patrice has many stories about stuff like that. And she's allowed me to grow individually. And I think we grow together because now I can laugh about it. It's like a joke. Once before, I didn't like to get compared to, I'm acting like a older Black woman. I thought it was like a slip. I thought she was trying to be like funny or something like that towards me. But as I thought about my life, I thought about like, yeah, this is exactly what my Aunt Doe would have said, or my mother would have said, or one of my aunts. So that helped shape me, and how we grow is I had to accept who I am, but also that I'm growing with the person that's seeing some of these things. So that's my answer to that. Patrice, I'm gonna throw that straight over to you with that.
I would say first and foremost, you grow in a relationship if you want to. You have to want to. And you have to have that desire. Nobody's going to give you that because it's going to be hard. It's not all smiles and giggles and all that cute stuff. Life is real. Like what Carla and Alvaro were lifting up, that's real. That's a whole other level of, how do you learn to tap into that and deal with the realities of what you're feeling? So I think that's definitely first and foremost, wanting to, for us, being spiritually grounded is a must. Because if it was up to me and him, who knows how this would be going. But thank God we are covered and cared for when we don't know what's going on, or when we think we know what's going on. And just understanding that it's a journey, right? Because people change, people grow, and just, I know, just being real, and just, I don't know, not having all of these awful expectations that the world will put on you, and checking that in a lot. I think that will definitely help you grow individually, which will in turn help you grow together. You can't always be pointing fingers, because it's easy to tell your partner what you think they should be doing. We have all those answers, but sometimes you need to look in that mirror and see what it is that you've done. When things get difficult, turn to wonder inward, though, and ask, why did I just get this mad? Or why am I talking like this right now about this? And just really starting to peel those layers back, and trying to keep your emotions because they're valid, but try not to lead with them. because they will have you going down a path and saying stuff you don't mean. You're not going to, just a whole bunch of mess. Try to keep that logic in the forefront.
That was a great answer. Honestly, that was great. I need to record this piece and be able to play this back when you get to tripping and say, "You remember you said." You said that one time on that call.
Okay.
Well, no, that was a good answer, though. I appreciate that. Okay, so going over to Carla and Alvaro again. Same question. How do you grow in a relationship together and individually?
Okay, individually, I believe that now I know a lot of my mistakes, or at least the mistakes you tell me that I'm making, and yeah, that helped me grow as a human too, because now I'm trying to be a better person every day, for me, for the people that is around me, and for her, obviously. And as a couple, I believe that I get to know you better, and that help us, for us to, in the future, maybe we have to build like a pretty good base to grow, right? And that's what we are doing right now, I believe.
Yeah, I would say we're probably the youngest of the couples here, as far as in terms of like young and being a couple. Like we've been together for 3 years. We'll celebrate our first year anniversary next week. Yes, thank you for the snaps. But yeah, so I think what Alvaro is saying holds true to me too, that like I grow as a person because he helps me put the mirror up to myself, like you said, Patrice. He helps me like recognize when, okay, this is now a pattern that you're exhibiting of, that's a little problematic from my perspective. And, at that point I can be like, okay, like, let me, try to see what you're saying. So in that sense, I've grown too. Or I've grown individually. And then kind of like what you're saying, growing together is, there's like this whole other person that has like comes with their own lived experiences and just like their own hobbies and likes. And so I grow from, just being in relationship with you every single day. I have, been able to make so many connections around like even like political connections to like Honduras, my island. I'm from Puerto Rico originally, Puerto Rico, the United States. Just like just my worldview is so much more expanded from being in relationship with this whole other person. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, Carla, because me being born and raised in Gary, Indiana, which is I don't want to disrespect the city I come from, so I'll just say Google it. Yeah, that's the best way I can say it. But I come from there, and Patrice graduated and went to private schools all her life. So you're talking about, I went to public schools and was kicked out for carrying a gun in high school, and she graduated Catholic school. So when we met, it was like, what do we have to talk about besides like nothing? Yeah, so it was weird and deep, and but it's like when they say opposites attract, I guess there's some truth to that, because you can learn a lot about the different. That was spot on, Carla, how you talked about your world grew. That's how I felt. My world got bigger, and I started learning about a lot of different things that I still do every day, honestly. So yeah, that was great. Thank you for that. Going over to the infield, how y'all feel about same question? How do you grow individually and in a relationship? Um, and whoever wants to jump in first, I'll do that like that.
Well, I would say, as far as individually, like I mentioned, I notice some things within myself that are changing, just, I guess, natural as I'm getting a little bit older. Just respecting the change of the person, I think I told Andre the other day, like 15 years ago, I liked this. I don't like that anymore. This is different. And just being able to be like, okay, well, that's fine. I get it. This is a part of the new you. So individually accepting your changes within yourself, and then collectively being able to, accept those changes together. He might say, hey, I know you only used to like cotton candy polish. Why don't you get some bright red or something? He might want to see a change in me. Just something that we do, together. And then respecting each other enough to kind of let some stuff sink in. I'm a person that when I'm upset, I say this a lot. Sometimes he don't know how to say some stuff to me. He be like, and I just be like, just say it. I think I do that to Ed too. Like, just spit it out. Say what you got to say. If it's something that's going to upset me, that I'm just going to take a moment to process and get back with you later. Even that was one of the things we had to learn together. Like, if there's an issue, he wants to communicate right away. I want to sit back, think about my words, because I don't want to cut you with my words. But I want to be able to express, like, hey, I don't like this, but be able to do it in a respectful manner. So just growing with each other.
Yeah, kind of like, what the wife said, man. You gotta first, you gotta love the relationship that you in, and you gotta wanna grow with that person. So she hit it right on the head, man. You just gotta go with the changes, man, and if that's what you love and that's what you like, then you just make it happen. So yeah, pretty much what Ebony said. Same as what Carla and her husband said, and so we kind of on the same page.
You can say it, bro. Say Alvaro. Yeah,
Alvaro. Yeah, you got to
yeah,
roll
there
it. You
you
got
go.
to.
Yeah.
I do Spanish anyway, so I'm trying to multitask. I'm not working.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Alvaro. Yeah, you got to roll
Yeah.
that off. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's it though, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate what you and your wife said about the that individual growth blending with the together growth, because that's powerful within itself as far as growing individually and finding out that you may be into something different now, or like not how do I explain this? I'm different now, and there's different things that I want to do, or different things that I don't want to do anymore. And just I really appreciate how y'all lifted up the being able to do both, and allow for that grace, because it's not easy. It's definitely not easy to just pop up one day. And when I met Patrice, I had tattoos, but there were a few, and yeah, I don't know, just over a while I just started showing up, and my neck is covered, my everything. She was just like, "Are you gonna stop?" And I was like, "Not yet." And it was yeah, it was cool, so that's one of the things that I think about. It is something that I knew I wanted to do in my life. I saw it growing up, and you don't really think about or at least I didn't. You once again using I statements. I didn't think about where you're with somebody and how they may react. I just thought about, well, this is my body. This is something that I want to do to express me. And it wasn't a problem, but I never even thought about what if it was. We didn't even have that type of conversation. That's a testimony to us being best friends and being cool. Like we don't really have those type of things. Thank goodness. But through growth, I also learned that even though it's not a requirement, out of respect, it's still just something that I would like to do. And so we've increased like communication. It's not like asking for permission really, but it's like just saying so you don't be shocked. Hey, I feel like doing this. So it's like one of them type of things. So that's my 2 cents on that. Anybody got anything that they want to, as we're winding down to about to be the closeout soon, does anybody want to add anything to the conversation?
I just want to lift up that this is an amazing conversation. I think more conversations like this need to be had, just so that a different narrative is being created and presented. One thing I tell people if I go to a wedding, immediately after I got married, say the vows out loud to yourself, because it's deep what you're saying. Because like 90 days in, I repeated it like, oh man, what did I just sign up for? Because it's really deeper, than just marriage. When you think about it line by line, it's pretty deep. And just encouraging people. And I tell people, hey, some days you might not like him or her. It's cool. But long as you always love one another, you'll always come out on the right side of things. And so I just think that creating a different narrative with realistic expectations is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Patrice, it looked like you wanted to say something too.
Yeah, I was going to just echo what Ebony just said. This conversation has been amazing. And Carla and Alvaro, even though you all have not been together as long, I know I didn't have that type of insight 3 years in at all. So, that's beautiful and a testament of where you all are just already. And so, yeah, I think this relationships, right, is just evolving, ever changing, growing. And I think the core, just something that Ebony triggered in me, like for you, Ed, the core of who you are never changed. That's always been the same. But maybe your expressions of it have been different. Your facial hair has been different, and your hair and so on and so forth. But who you are now is who I fell in love with then. So that part, that hasn't changed. But just, evolving over time. So yeah, I'm just thankful for this conversation and look forward to many more.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Anybody else want to add anything before we close?
Yes, thank you. And yeah, Patrice, it's funny, like now, especially since we moved here, because when we first started, our first year and a half together was in Honduras. And just seeing some of those expressions of ourselves, some of the first changes of those are like, seeing, just seeing ourselves in a different light kind of for the first time and seeing how that emerges. Like I think it's been fun. But really fun. I look forward to, like a lot more of those in the, just us continuing to evolve, as time passes. But thank you all for inviting us. And yes, it was a great conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I just want to say great conversation. Like being in the room with some of the people that share some of the same things that we do. Marriage is a beautiful thing, so it's hard, but you know, like I said, if you want to make it happen, you will make it happen. And I'm trying to be one of those ones that say I'm celebrating my 75-year anniversary or something like that later on down the line. So yeah, let's keep up these kind of topics and these conversations, man, and hopefully we can get more people engaged and get some more input and stuff like that. That's cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you all being here. Just echoing what Patrice said, I remember being one of the people growing up that I constantly told everybody I would never get married. I even told Patrice when we were together that we were not getting married. I said it a lot. I didn't think we needed to. I didn't think we needed to.
Yeah, that's because of the how you grew up. You know what I mean? Like we said back to the 3 questions ago, growing up in that neighborhood, seeing what we saw, we thought that we wasn't supposed to. We thought we were supposed.
Before I met Carla, I thought that I was never gonna get married. To be honest, it was the best time of my life. Oh, I thought that before. I was perfect. I had my job. I had my heart clean, my mind clean. I was doing everything I want, and and I met her, and I didn't know, to be honest with you. I didn't have the.
I didn't want that either, for the
Uh-huh.
record. I think I was not looking for marriage.
Me neither. My heart. I was thinking that, okay, Alvaro, you have to realize you're never gonna get married. You're happy the way you are right now, so just keep doing what you're doing. And then I met her, and I discovered that you have to be in peace with your soul, with yourself, with your mind, with everything on you, in order to make someone happy. And because we wanted to keep going with our our relationship, we decided to get married. That's the only reason we are married, because we wanted to keep together.
Yeah, because you know it was either, well, if we don't get married, then our relationship's over, because I had to leave the country, like this boundary setting, like I had to leave the country, so we can't physically be in the same place together and try to keep this relationship going unless we get married. So it's kind of a means to an end, I think, in a way. Which is, but
y'all. Wait a minute, y'all lifted up something powerful though that I tell a lot of young men, and I wish everything happens for a reason. So I don't want to say I wish somebody would have explained to me, but it probably would have did some good if somebody explained what you all just explained. And what I just got from that is, if it means this much to you, if this person means this much, then this is what you owe them. That's one of the things. When I called Patrice, I won't say from where or when, but I'll just say I called and I said, you know what, it's it's about that time. I said, if we can get over this part, then I know what I would like to do, because I don't want to go backwards. I would like to go forward. And if going forward, so they used to have a saying. Have you all ever seen in a movie where they say, I'm gonna make an honest woman out of you, or make an honest man out of you? And what that means is, like, anything that's outside of being totally for real and having a real relationship was looked at or deemed as cheating, or just going halfway there. So some people became engaged. So you had a fiance for years, until you felt like it's time. But anything other than that was literally like cheating. cheating yourself and cheating the person. And so women were told, don't give yourself up unless he commits to you. And then men were told like something very similar. Don't spend anything or don't commit fully unless you two commit. So I just really appreciate you too, Carla and Alvaro, lifting up the seriousness of, if we're gonna be together, we got to be for real about it. Like, you know, like Patrice said, the cute stuff that lasts for a weekend, and that's cool, and you can have that memory forever. But if this person means a lot to you, it's time to yeah. They got a saying I think would be inappropriate to say, so I ain't gonna say it, but I'll just say, do what you got to do or get off the pot. That's how I say it. Yeah.
We telling truth. You could have said it. Wish you just gonna say it. You could have said it.
I could have just said it.
You could have just said it.
But y'all know what I mean, you know, like it's showing that action. So I just really appreciate y'all saying like it was time to be for real or just leave that alone. And that's respect. Yeah, definitely. Honestly, respect to all of y'all for committing to one another. Patrice for putting up with me. Appreciate it, definitely. And to all of y'all for leaning into one another and being with one another to the point that we can actually have a conversation like this. Thank you all. Any last words before we play this video? We got a world premiere video that we gonna
I do have one last thing real quick. I know this was about relationships, but I do just want to say for anyone who's thinking about being married, you need to decide if you want to have a wedding or if you want to be in a marriage. They're totally different things. And it's been lifted up different parts through this, but I just want to make sure I say that because the frills and the thrills in that day. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, not so much as the fantasy part, but the reality part. The not the pretty dress, but what we gonna wear on our way to pay this bill. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And so that's a nice quote. It is. So with that, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here, for sharing your truth. And then I really think this is awesome because we're different people. I'm a different person when my wife is in the room, you know, like it's like I'm somebody type of thing. You know, I get to poke my chest out a little bit more and say, yeah, somebody actually cares about me enough to not just put up with me and deal with me, but try to get the best from me. And that's very appreciated in this world. So I'm thankful for that. And yeah, thank you all for being here and sharing conversations. Okay, sorry, y'all. I was reading the text. We can go unless anybody has anything else to say. Francis is about to play the video, and we're closing out with that.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for the invitation. It feels really good to have this kind of conversations with you, and I believe we are open to any other invitation in the future.
I like how you looked at her and checked first. I know all about that. Yeah. Yeah, but I think we definitely should have a part 2 for this and just keep it going. If we can help strengthen our community in this type of way with talking about love and building like this type of way, I'm definitely in for that. So thank you. Okay. So now True. upside your head. I said truth upside your head. Truth upside your head. I said truth upside your head.
Wake up everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more standing on the sidelines or thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much than what it used to be. But together we can heal while we build community.
Okay, so what you hear is not a test. All hands on deck at a time like this. Join TRHT, just an abbreviation for truth, racial healing and transformation. Now imagine having a conversation, practice touchstones and using your I statements. Being fully present when it's your turn to listen. Our community is building and healing through resistance. Truth talk.
Love that video.
Thank you all so much.
I love the song.
That's cool. Thank you. So that's the theme song for the Truth Talks now. Every hero needs some theme music. I saw that in ain't that what I'm gonna get you sucker? Ain't that what they said in there? Every hero needs some theme music. But okay, so yeah, closing remarks. Once again, just thank you all for being here and taking the time to share with us. I'm Ed Genesis. This has been a Truth Talks on relationship, and I'm out. Peace, y'all. Thank you.